Hey there and welcome. Happy Thursday, December 16th. We have a great one for you here today. We have just two more full lectures. That's today and one next week, which is marketing yourself directly to the decision maker. And two very special Ask Self Recruiter sessions. Those are the Q&A live sessions. Next one's tomorrow and one more next week. So 4 sessions, including today, right before the holidays hit. Please join in as many as you can. Let me just share my screen and we will get started today. Well, today is Supercharging Your Job Search. This is about how you're going to take back control. Just as a reminder, in this intense 2-week series that I'm in right now, we have 4 more sessions left. You can check my selfrecruiter.com website and just click the calendar tab. You have all my dates and hopefully you can tune in as well. Supercharging our job search. This is really how to organize and manage, control your job search. The problem that I see most often is people really not having an actual plan, spending or wasting, in my view, all of their time sitting on the internet looking for job postings. And the problem with that is, in my view, about 50% of all job postings you see are not real. They're not real in the first place. Now, they may represent something they may hire someday, but they don't actually qualify as something that makes it a real job posting today. For it to be real today, they have to be ready to post the ad and start looking for the right individual. When they identify a potentially right individual, they have to be ready and willing to set that interview schedule. And when they find the right one of those among all those candidates, they have to be ready to extend an offer, set a start date. All of that is required. That is the intent for it to be a real job posting. Otherwise, we're just window shopping, fishing. And the problem with chasing job postings, if half of them aren't real, and that's how you invest all of your time, you've really wasted half of your time, the only resource you have as a job seeker. In case you haven't seen me before, John Crant, author, career coach, and speaker. Resume and LinkedIn guru as well. We're going to remind you a lot in today's session that job search is a sales process. We cannot get away from that. But actually, that should provide you some comfort. If it really is a sales process, also mixed in with a little bit of a dating process, then there are steps that we can take that will make life easier, make things better. Of course, if you need help with your resume or LinkedIn or your approach to your next interview, I think you know where to find me over on the selfrecruiter.com website. All my packages are under the services tab. And if you need to talk before you know which package is right for you, just send me a quick email. Books are a pretty good resource as well. Usually the public library has some copies, usually on hold, on loan to another location, due back, Amazon, my own website as well. A couple other resources. My LinkedIn lecture special version of it, halfway down my Self Recruiter website homepage. You can see me large, or you can see the slides large. This can really become a start and stop tutorial for the LinkedIn side of your upgrades. Over on LinkedIn itself, a few different articles that will help you really further and get past some of the issues that might have been holding you back. So let's get to the real problem when we're talking about organizing and managing our job search. I'm not going to read all these things, but I'm going to take a little sip while you take a read. These are all of the things that are activities that have to be looked at in job search. If we leave any one of these things unaddressed, we potentially leave our opportunity unanswered. So we want to think about how we're going to maximize all that we do here, really to make this really terrific. Otherwise, we end up in a very unhappy place, which a lot of us already are in job search. That really comes from autopilot. Don't let somebody else think for yourself. I'm going to give you a lot to think about today, and you'll be distracted in all sorts of directions. But really, this is all advice. You're the one that has to digest it and begin to think for ourselves. So let's imagine putting down that smart device, that mobile phone, whatever it might be, getting out of the back seat and getting behind the wheel, or we're not really going to get to that destination we're imagining. Now, here's your guiding principle. Is this the most effective use of my time at this moment? In job search, when you are doing it effectively, you'll have so much activity going on that you're beginning to generate. You will lose track of something very, very important. It's very important. But if you're doing the right level of activity, you're going to be juggling so many things that are very important you will eventually possibly forget one of them. A little bit of, I hate to make this reference given what's going on with the weather, but a little bit of being caught up inside of a tornado, something about to fly out at any time. This is the guiding principle. Is this the most effective use of my time at this moment? How do I get to my next interview? How do I get to my next offer faster? Keep you on track. It'll also keep you from doing the easier, low-hanging fruit activities that fill up our time and aren't as strategic and certainly don't pay off as well in the end. All of those things in that master list have to be distilled down to this. Somehow has to fit into a plan for searching for jobs or sending out resumes or networking or following up on different opportunities and strategizing. But a lot of it, and look at that last one on the list, marketing ourselves to hiring managers. Very special lecture next week, the paradigm shift in job search, marketing yourself to the decision maker, directly bypassing HR. That's next week's lecture. I hope you tune in for it. Of course, if this is to be effective, you have to monitor and measure. Otherwise, nothing is actually improved. That means we have to look at those numbers every single day. And at every single Friday, we have to take a cold, hard look of reality. In my book, I talk about you only have to really be honest with one person to be successful. And I think you know who that is. You got to be honest with yourself. That's what it all is about. And in the book, I talk about the concept of standing in front of a mirror completely naked with just fluorescent lighting. And we can all imagine how horrifying that is for every one of us, because none of us look like those folks in the magazine, and neither do they, thanks to Photoshop. But that harsh fluorescent light of truth, that's what we have to have when we review our numbers. So structuring and building our job search plan of action, it is incredibly simple. You're going to see this slide a few times in today's lecture. It really is as simple as choosing the organizations or companies that you want to go after. Notice we didn't say chasing down those job postings, choosing the organizations or companies you want to go after, selecting 25 to 30 individuals at each. We'll walk you through that entire process, opening their LinkedIn profiles, which triggers a marketing event of you having looked at them behind the firewall of the company, by the way, asking them to connect. Really, the opening the profiles and asking to connect, that's picking up a fish hook, taking a little worm, tossing it out into the pond, and being patient enough to let it wiggle around in the water until someone clicks on your name and opens up your three-dimensional sales brochure, which is what your LinkedIn profile should be. These are lures to draw the 25 to 30 people that surround that job exactly to you. They understand the pain of you not being in that role. Then we simply email 3, 4, 5 decision makers, which are part of the 25 to 30. Not really brain surgery. Well, again, we're going to go into much more detail. We simply book a meeting, an interview, sell, and repeat. That's what job search really is. It's a sales process. And as with every sales process, you don't win every sale, but the more sales you go after, the more sales you win. You know, we'd love to click that apply for a job or whatever it might be and get it, but you know, not that easy. Everybody's hitting that same darn button. And really that goes, in most cases, that goes to the HR individual or some outside recruiter or some internal recruiter, doesn't really matter. The outside recruiters, the internal recruiters, the HR folks may be very nice people, by the way. And there are some really nice people there. But unless you like to work for HR, they are not your decision maker. In fact, they don't hire anybody except who works for HR. That's all HR hires. The rest of it, they facilitate. So to me, even entering the arena of potentially being judged by someone not qualified to judge me leaves me in a very unhappy place. If I simply got to the decision maker, found my courage, had a 90-second conversation with the decision maker, they'd know exactly why I'm right for this role or not. You cannot talk yourself into a role that you're not right for. But that decision maker will understand your language. They'll understand your value. They'll get you right away. Today, and of course, the whole series, it's about one thing. How do I become a self-recruiter? This one great recruiter that looks after one great individual, which is you, by the way. That also means you have to be the strategist, the cheerleader, the planner. Yeah, we've got to pick ourselves up by the bootstraps sometimes and dust ourselves off and head right back out that door. The bulk of becoming a self-recruiter, this one great person looking over one great candidate, is as simple as networking in a very different way. That's LinkedIn. So if you have not watched my LinkedIn lecture, please do. It'll help you tremendously. But also involves keeping one eye on the toughest competitor imaginable at all times. If it was 4, 5, 6 people, they'd scare you out of going after that job. We have to watch those people. Now, job search involves problem solving. Everything that you've worked on in your career that was intense involved problem solving. It's a sales process here. We've got to problem solve in the sales process. So we're going to create this job search plan to make things a whole lot easier. We're going to simply reverse what most people do. We're going to get off the internet, quit looking at job postings for a little bit. And now simply I'm going to try to create a list of statistically perfect companies. By the way, I show 2 methods for this over in my LinkedIn lecture for creating statistically perfect lists of companies that would hire you today if they had an opening. Changes the equation when you go after the right ones. So let's think about maybe even starting from a place of 10 companies. I know 30 is a lot. What if you came up with 10 companies you're dying to work for? By the way, you being dying to work there cannot be because you saw some open job. That's about you. And this is a date. We have to keep it about them. So is it their product? Is it their service? Is it their reputation in the industry? I don't know what it is that attracts you to them, but it has to be real. No matter what, if it's real, it works. Just like actual dating. I can't walk into a room of people going, anybody want to date? Anyone want to date? We're looking at date. Who wants a random date with someone looking for a random date? I don't think so. Keep moving. Or if I walk in that room and I suddenly spot the individual that warms my heart that I just can't not cross the room to introduce myself, everything's very, very different. So we have to think about the elements of the dating process, select the companies or organizations. If you come up with 10, by the way, that's not very difficult from your heart. 10 companies that really get you juiced. Great. Take those 10 companies. Let's go over to a free financial tool. You can use Yahoo Finance or Hoovers.com. There's a lot of different ones out there. Pop their name into one of those financial tools. By the way, those tools usually give you a much better synopsis of the company's function than even the company website. Clear. Usually a little to the left of the write-up or a little to the right of the write-up are their 3 top competitors right there. So I can take these 10 companies, put them in a financial tool, see who their 3 top competitors are, come up with 40 companies, maybe cross out a couple duplicates, throw out a couple I don't like. Probably all the reasons why I'm attracted to these 10 probably mostly apply to the others. Now you have a list of 30 companies, statistically perfect to hire you. The only thing we don't know is, do they have an opening? Now, if you've ever worked with a good recruiter will do this same thing without really telling you. They'll understand who you are. They'll extract from you to understand what companies are the right ones. They'll work and create a statistically perfect list. And then the good recruiter does not bother to look at the company websites, does not bother to look at the job boards. They simply pick up the phone and call 30 managers at 30 companies. Boom, 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 boom. 2, 3, or 4 every single time. Go, oh, we need a person just like this. You do? Tell me about your need. Tell me about your problem. Tell me about your team. What we don't do is tell them about the homework, the magic trick, how we positioned ourselves to get struck by lightning. By the way, 2, 3, or 4 out of 30, that is really worthwhile investment. I would follow that and go down that. Now, once you put together those companies, we certainly have to stack rank them. I hope you're approaching the most valuable company to you first and the least valuable company to you last. Just makes sense. Devise the steps needed. What John's talking about really isn't possible, but if it was, how do I work backwards, aligning the sun, the moon, the stars to devise the steps needed? Not that difficult. Allow yourself to think like a little bit of a Sherlock Holmes, a little bit of a detective, working backwards. Discover the decision makers. Well, we'll show you how to do that right today in today's lecture. Also, that's repeated in my LinkedIn lecture and a couple other places. What's their title? Decision maker. Their job is to object to you. Well, why would an objection to your background throw you off? When I hear someone object to my background, you know what happens inside? Because they're engaged. They wouldn't object to something if they didn't want to hear how I'd overcome that objection. So you need to reverse your whole brain process and become excited at the objections, understanding that's a platform because they want to hear your wisdom pour right out and your value. Get a meeting, dazzle them, either get that job or have them create the job for you. That's the basics of an actual job search plan. Did you notice it didn't involve sitting on the internet looking at job postings? That doesn't mean that I don't need to occasionally sit on the internet looking at job postings, but that's just one of about 15 different avenues that could produce the job. So I can't get stuck on that. So we start with these 30 companies, statistically perfect. The right list changes everything. This is a sales process. Well, this won't be too shocking for most people, especially if you're actually in sales, basic sales funnel. The more activity you put in at the top, the more potential result. It's actually very, very similar to the distillation process. When I was a young guy, I happened to visit with my sister the Jack Daniel's distillery in Tennessee, which was a very interesting trip. And you see all these gigantic vats with all this stuff going in, all going down to drip, 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 drip. The little bit of preciousness coming out of the bottom. Same thing here. What you put into it will determine largely what comes out of it. Now, our goal in job search is to try to juggle approaching 10 organizations at the same time. If you are not trying to juggle approaching 10 organizations at the same time, not very likely to arrive at a point of getting multiple offers simultaneously. Getting multiple offers simultaneously is not a fantasy. I have a lot of clients that do it all the time. It requires putting a lot of concentrated effort in simultaneously, juggling a lot so that you can have the right drip, drip, drip of value. Real goal coming out of the 10 organizations and their pursuit is to generate one brand new organization interview every single week. And that is a very tough goal. Connect with people. Here's how we're going to begin the process. So I've picked ABC Company as the first one on my list. Oh, I can't wait. Okay. I'm going to go into LinkedIn. I reverse search ABC Company, which I'll still show you how to do. I select the 25 to 30 individuals. I'm going up the food chain. Don't be shy. Up. Further up the food chain, they're not afraid of you. They think of you as a potential strategic asset. This won't sound right. A pawn on the chessboard. They need pawns on the game board, or they can't play the game. So there's value up the food chain, down, all the way down to admin level. Very strategic reasoning there, and there's a lot of value there too as well. Plus, those folks way down the list, they'll accept very quickly. You'd like to connect with me? Absolutely. Yes, I would. You know why? Because then I can perform my search of this company again after a few people connect with me. I can likely see 10 times deeper into the company. I hope you didn't lose that piece of why we do this. Of course, left and right into a surrounding department or two. And I'm going to ask them to connect. Both of those, of course, are taking the fish hook, putting the worm on it, tossing it under the pond, and letting it wiggle around, trying to lure people into clicking on your name, which pops open your full sales brochure if it's done the way I recommend. Do watch my LinkedIn lecture. So I'm going to connect with people. As I do, I have to communicate a few basics. You don't know me. I'm certainly professionally appropriate. And here's a little stroke to your ego. What does that sound like? It's really, really simple and basic. I like to connect with other professionals in our niche or niche, depending how we like to say that. Come up. And of course, love to add you to my professional network on LinkedIn. Says you don't know me, professionally appropriate. Here's a little stroke to your ego. Now, it's a sales process. So because I've asked them to connect, there is no waiting. The answer is irrelevant. Oh, I know you want those connections. I do too. But the answer to this in the job search process is irrelevant. There's no waiting. Send out the things. Do it all at once. Open, send them out, ask to connect. Now I simply look back at the pool of 25 to 30 people that have already opened and asked to connect. Didn't wait. From your own gut feeling now, I simply go, well, who do I think? Because your opinion really is the only one that matters. Who do I think are the 3, 4, or 5 individuals that would likely be involved in the conversation for a person like myself? Key now is to reach out to each and every one of those by direct email, not within LinkedIn, by direct email to their own inbox, their own real box, as if each one is the only person in the world. Dear Jack, dear Jim, dear Jill, I just had to reach out and introduce myself to you. We're going to go through the whole script piece as well. Now, you're going to be creating, absorbing, and discovering a lot of information. It'd be a real shame if you don't begin to collect this. These forms you can download right from my website, selfrecruiter.com, right under the advice tab, which is the blog. Just look for the job search management system. It's free. You can download all of this. You have to have something that I call a company development sheet. You're going to change jobs again. I hope that's not a surprise to you. We're not in a world where we're having one last job. You're going to have one more job, and after that, one more job, and likely after that, one more job. That's the world we live in. The sooner you begin to not only manage your career brand, but to manage the information you collect about all these companies and the key deciders. That's knowledge that will help you now and in the future. So fill out these forms. They'll also guide you to next steps. What else can I do? How else can I push the envelope? Because it's a sales process. To review the simplicity again, it's as simple as creating that organization list, select the 25 to 30 individuals, open the profiles, ask to connect, don't wait for the answer, email the 3, 4, 5 decision makers, script still to come ahead, book a meeting, sell, repeat, 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 repeat. Small little changes change everything. Your script's going to have to change too. Your script today in the pandemic world, we're going to have to think about how remote work is here to stay for a little while. I know we'd all like their life to get back to normal, but Mother Nature has other plans, I think, for the moment. So if we've not worked remotely, that may be a big concern. You might have to look at some of these type of activities which demonstrate remote skill, remote ability, remote orchestration, and you might have to tell the story a slightly different way, even if you've never actually worked remotely, or maybe you've have experience as a speaker, conference calls or conferences or webinars, those types of things. Again, it's a wonderful way to demonstrate I can be effective at a distance. Well, let's just get to it. Who is the decider? Well, not just the decider. This is about influence. This is about thinking about the circle around the decider, because rarely do they make that decision in a vacuum. So who is it that makes the decisions? Is it HR, hiring manager, the boss's boss? Probably a little of those all contribute to the decision. I want you to think about the companies you've worked for, how they're generally structured, and how we're going to get to the boss's boss or boss's boss's boss or peer subordinates, anybody else we want to reach. This part should be pretty familiar to you. You know your field, you know the track that you're on. It's not brain surgery to get to the decision chain. You can look up and see, well, here are my deciders. You want to be hired in these areas, go to the decision makers. In fact, I'm a big believer that if I think the manager is the hiring person, I think the sales manager is the hiring person for me. Okay, well, I'm probably going to go to the VP or maybe the EVP to start. Up the food chain. You get the recommendation down the food chain for interview. You always get that interview. By the way, the manager may or may not like it, but you always get that interview. So let's think about top-down selling. They need great assets like you, and they're not afraid of you. Let's go have that discussion with someone that can really interpret our value. And then capture all of that and think about where else could I go? Who else is a persuader to the decision maker? Now, how else to find decision makers? Of course, name mentions. We can read a lot of industry information, books, articles, blogs, press releases, company websites, all sorts of things. So those name mentions are a very normal way of how we find our sales lead, essentially who could potentially hire me. By the way, they don't actually have to be the decision maker themselves, as long as they know the decision maker. And in most cases, you can tell that based on what they do. Referrals to decision makers, every conversation you have is going to end up with you either getting or not getting what your primary goal is. Just because you don't get your primary goal, I wanted an interview to go work at this company, but we're not hiring. In fact, we just hired 3 people. We're full till the spring. Okay, it's obviously not going to happen here, but I could go after a referral. If I impressed them with my background, if I stroked their ego the right way, I could put them in my shoes, looking out of my eyes, and ask their opinion for where I should go to and get referrals. Referrals, by the way, are very, very powerful. It's not their job to give you referrals. It is your job to cause them to want to give you referrals. Most of the time, though, we're going to be using LinkedIn. And our typical understanding of the org chart, just like I teach in LinkedIn, lecture to reverse search this company, look through the titles, and choose really both the 25 to 30 people and the 3, 4, 5 deciders. So a quicker version of how to do all this, we go to the unified search box at the top of any page on LinkedIn, searches the same thing. In here, as an example, I'm searching Informatica. If Informatica was on my list, that's a big database middleware company. I'm going to type it out, but I start getting this drop-down menu. Don't click on the drop-down menu. That's a trip down the rabbit hole. Don't do it. Simply type what you'd like, hit enter. Then what happens is you get this nice secondary sorting process. And yes, I am here to look for Informatica and potentially those people that work at Informatica. But as long as I'm here, I bet you there's probably other companies I haven't thought of. They've escaped my awareness somehow. So let's go look at the companies. Oh yeah, show me the companies. There it is under the drop down. I found it. Show me the companies. What do we get? Oh, 34,000 companies. That's a lot. What's going on here? Well, once you get past the Informatica, further down the list, I can tell you who these folks are. This used to be my field, one of my fields. These are all down the list. They're all system integrators. They either resell or install Informatica software. If I am statistically right to go work for Informatica, I'm very likely statistically right for a great number of the orgs on this list. I hope you've already connected the dots. Literally, you could take every employer you've ever worked with, pop them in here, see who else shows up on that list that's not the employer, because statistically, they'd probably like to hire your skill set. But eventually we have to find people. So we go, okay, I've done the Informatica thing. Let's go find the people in Informatica. Now show me the people. Okay, what do I get? 2.5 million. Okay, I'll be cold and in the ground before I get through that list. I'm gonna have to do some creative thinking here. I know what it is. And by the way, I only use the free version of LinkedIn. You should use whichever version you like. Everything I'm teaching you, you can do on the free version. But I realized what the problem is. I need the ones not all over the world. I need the ones really in the US. And you know what? I don't need someone that worked for Informatica 3 years ago. I need someone that works for Informatica now, all on the free version. What do I get? Oh, 1,615 results. Much, much better. I can't look at 1,600 people either. Some more thought process here. So if I click through, even on the free version, I think a VP is going to hire me. Look at that, simple VP. Really US, really Informatica. What do I get? 75 VPs. A lot of chiefs in that company. Let's see. Maybe it's a director. I think it's a director. Let's say director, really US, really Informatica. What do I get from this? Oh, 228. I've got it. You know why I have it? Because it's problem solving. This is brainstorming. The answer just isn't here. You have to fish around for it and think. So what it really is, I realize now, is a sales director. That's what I need. As long as I've got my thinking cap on, I need them not just in the US, I need them in the greater New York City area, even on the free version. What do I get? 3. Fantastic. Now I have 3 people. But you know, John said 3 to 5 people. If I had 5 people, my odds would change dramatically because I like to calculate the numbers. So 3 is great, nice minimum, but if I had 5, I'd be luckier. Maybe there's a sales VP really in the greater New York City area. What do I get? 2 more. Now I'm up to 5. I've got 5 people who would actually very likely be involved in the conversation to hire a person like myself. Let's show you some frustration here on these 2 extra over on the far right. Oh, connect. I love that. InMail, send InMail. Do we understand what InMail is before we send it? It is spam. The literal definition of spam, it is paid email. My inbox on LinkedIn is jam-packed with well over 1,000 unopened messages of nonsense, endless spam marketing to me through InMail. Please do not send InMail. I still want to connect with Nick. Okay, well, learn to step over the fence or whatever the gate is that's stopping you. If I just click if I load his profile and click the 3 little dots next to it, a little menu pops down. Oh, there's the connect button. They just hit it over here behind the bush. They'll never find it over here. Of course, this message is a message I write one time ever, copy and paste forevermore. Now I can connect to the 3 to 5 people. I can capture all of their information on my company development sheet. I can think about who or what comes next in my sales process. But remember, it's a dating process. So no matter what, I know you're there to sell you, but it's about them before you sell you. So let's not forget that. Thank you, Joanna. I love those great comments. So wherever you are in that part of the process, take that first step. Now, most people's first step is not very effective. Hi, it's John. I'd like you to hire me. How'd you get my number? Take me off your list. Security? Okay, that's not a very good approach. Job search is this sales process. So we have to think about value everywhere. Every single word that comes out of our mouth has to have value. So it's our job to be persuasive. We have 30 seconds in a script where they'll give us a little bit of grace period before they're either going to stomp on top of our head. How'd you get my number? Take me off your list. Never call me again. I hate you people. As a recruiter, I've had every one of those things said to me, and I live to tell. I'm also shy and introverted, so you can imagine it was very painful to have those things said to me, and yet very determined to work it out. Here's the script. You're not going to write it right now, but what I teach you now will help you write your own very, very good script. I'm going to bring this a little bit larger. I think I can go tiny, so this is a little more readable. Oh, there we go. So we're going to take you through the structure right now. This column of text on the left will remind you of what I'm teaching you right now as you work through your own script. Let's just understand the structure. I'm going to greet them. I'm going to wait for their response, which no one wants to do because we're all afraid of, how'd you get my number? Take me off your list. Never call me again. We're going to tell them why we're calling. Now, if we went to one of those schools, there's only about this many. I don't care what you think of your school. There's about this many. If you went to one of those schools, you mention it. If you didn't go to one of those schools, set it aside for the moment. That's not the sell piece. Get right to 2 or 3 key things about you, key accomplishments that would make them jump out of their chair, and then close them. Close them is simply a scary sales term that means ask for what you'd like and ask for agreement to it. You simply can't ask for what you'd like. That's not closing. You have to also ask them for agreement to it, which is where they say no. That's why we're afraid of that. Let me let you hear how this might sound. Hey, good morning, Jack. It's John Crant. Just like they should know who that is. How are you doing this morning? Oh, I'm great, John. How can I help you? Well, I love that response, by the way. I love that response, but you're going to get good, bad, or ugly response. You might get that response, or you might get the trained dog, like Pavlov training the dogs with the food and the little bell. Yeah, I might say my greeting, and they might go, I'm fine, John. How can I help you? Trained dog response. I'll take it. Okay. Or you might get, I'm terrible. All right. Well, let's back up. We're going to do the whole thing with the terrible response. I think you can imagine how it goes if it's a positive response. I go, hey, good morning, Jack. It's John Crant. How are you doing this morning? I'm terrible. Well, Jack, let's see if we can change that. I just had to reach out and introduce myself to you. I'm so excited by what I see going on at ABC Company. By the way, I saw that Wall Street Journal article on your new such and such launch. Oh, those things are always so good to get. Yes. Try to be a real human being as you communicate with people, as if you're speaking to a dear old friend you haven't seen in 5 years. There's a warm relationship here, even though there's really none. I've stroked their ego. I mentioned that thing. Now, the reason I mentioned that is because I have value I could add to that project right away. And I happen to then go, when I was back at XYZ Company, I handled a very similar launch. Pause. To get an interview, all you need is a carrot. What little carrot are you going to dangle that would be so enticing they're going to speak with you? Jack, I'd love to come in and share with you how we tackled all those issues I bet your team may be experiencing. In fact, I have an opening on my calendar. This is the close, right for the jugular. I have an opening on my calendar Tuesday at 10 a.m. And then you do a handoff where you, as a puppet master, you gently hand off control to them so they feel in control. But I think you know who's in control here. The handoff is as simple as, I have an opening on my calendar. Words are so important. Tuesday at 10 a.m. Might that work for a brief meeting? Question mark. Brief solves the only real problem. Don't waste my time. Oh, it's brief. I can handle it. Might makes them feel in control, as if there's really any control here on their part. And it's a very different outcome. Don't be afraid to do this stuff. It's very, very new to a lot of people, but it works. I had a mature gentleman, mature in their career, come up to me. I think this was about 2 years ago at the library, and it was after one of my lectures. They said, "Oh, I got your book. It was really, really good, very helpful." Oh, that calling part that was in there, that was not for me. That was not for me. And then I tried it and it worked. I'm like, well, it's not going to work every time, just like anything's not going to work every time. But if you systematically use this approach, you will see a vast difference in what happens for you. So I know these things are scary, but we have to a little bit of flying without a net with as much preparation as possible. Another thing to think about is if you get or don't get your primary goal, you could have a relationship with them. Can I call you back to ask you questions, which may sound like, can I call you back to bother you? Now, when I was taught this technique, I'm going to give you the actual language. At first, I was taught this as a recruiter, how to get an agreement to a relationship. I thought, what hogwash? This sounds like hogwash to me. And then as I started to use it, I realized how well it works. So what is all this mystery here? Getting an agreement to a relationship. Yes, it takes some statement. We're going to light this up so you can see what I'm doing here. Jack, this is toward the end when I didn't get hired because they just hired a slew. They've already given me their opinion. Maybe they even gave me a referral. And now even walking out the door after I already got a few things, I want an agreement to a relationship. Jack, from time to time, I'll run into something, some interesting situation when speaking to others in the industry. It would be helpful to run a scenario by you. Would it be okay if I called you for your opinion or advice if something interesting were to come up in discussions? Now, first thought is, why would they ever agree to this? First off, managers tend to live in a bubble. They have a lot of work, call to call to call, 5 minutes late on the last call, endless. They live in this bubble where they're trapped only in the world of information they see. So having this ability that you might be speaking to other managers in the industry and have some interesting scenario, you betcha they want to hear about it. I was really shocked at how quickly they agreed to this once you handle it the right way, which also means you have to deliver it the right way. You may never actually call them back, but what this does, even going through it, is build a tighter bond of chemistry, and they certainly will remember you in a very, very different way. But your job is not to burn out assets. So I'm certainly not going to ever call them back unless I have a strategic purpose to it, because I have to balance and manage those communications so that they really don't burn people. Along the way, yep, building trust, building relationship, and every bit of it is a chance to sow a little bit of value. As you wrap up your calls and you get or don't get what you wanted from them, what else can I get from this call? What did I not think of? Is there something else I can say? What are they thinking of me? What do I want to leave them thinking of me? Is there something else that I can do? There's always something else. Maybe you can stroke their ego and put them in your shoes, looking out of your eyes and get an opinion. Like Jack, I know with your background and position within the industry, I mean, who do you know that's hiring right now? Or Jack, with your background and position within the industry, if you had my background, what am I missing? Where would you look for an opportunity? I'd look at XYZ company. Oh my gosh, why didn't they tell me that before? It's not their job to tell me those things. It's my job, or your job. It's my job to make them desire to tell me those things, to have those things occur to them in their brain because of how I've handled the conversation, and they want to help me. Put them in your shoes, looking out of your eyes, and give them a little figurative nudge. As a reminder, the job search steps themselves are very, very easy. Don't sit on the internet wasting away your time. Actually put a sales plan together to go after the right organizations, run through the entire process, and you will draw more and more people to you. Now, that's a lot to control. You really need a system to kind of manage this whole thing. You can download that whole free system to manage this right over my Self-Recruiter website. We're going to sit down at the end of every day and look at our goals. We're going to sit down on Friday and look at the week's goals. Not going to take you through every form as we begin to wrap up today's lecture, but I do want to showcase what's involved and why it's really valuable for you to download this. The first form I am going to take you through, and that's the goals form. The rest I'll just show you. The goals form, the bottom of it, I'm going to set some benchmarks. Now, you have to set your own benchmarks, but I can give you some guidance here. Number of companies I will contact. Well, there's a caveat there. Those are brand new companies I have never contacted before. I know there's other companies you've contacted before that you want to contact again. Absolutely. But we don't count those. That's good effort, but you also have to have fresh new blood in your job search. These brand new companies every single week will help you. What's that number? It's probably not more than 3. Oh, if you think it is, you're not going to be able to 25 to 30 opens, ask them to connect, 3, 4, 5 decision makers, do my follow-up. And if they don't respond, your job is to keep after them till you book that interview or till they tell you to go away. I hope they don't tell you to go away. But if they do, even as they, John, could you quit calling me? Absolutely. But Jack, I just had to reach out, and you don't think I'm going to stop selling to them just because I apologize to them? Of course. So number of emails, these are outbound to managers or HR. These are first time outreaches to managers or HR folks that you have never reached out to before. Number of calls outbound, maybe you're not ready to call. I'm too scared. Maybe yours is 0. Hopefully in a week or 2 or 3, you'll be brave enough to call. Number of calls to managers you see are differentiated in bold from those to HR. Unless you want to get hired in HR, there's no time I'll say to call HR. We need to call the manager directly. Here's the number we can kid ourselves most about. Number of meaningful conversations. Oh my gosh. I can blow a lot of smoke about that nonsense. So what's a meaningful conversation? I have to have extracted something of value that will make my next step or job search easier. So maybe I didn't get any of my goals I was after. Okay, didn't get them. But what I did extract is a name of a new contact I can go after, or an idea of a new company that I can go after. Maybe they were just trying to get me off the phone, but I extracted something from them, including when was their last hire? When do they expect the next hire? There's so many things I could ask if I wasn't trying to get off the phone. Your job is to stay on the phone. I'll give you a secret there. As I was training recruiters, in their first several weeks, I would set everything up. We'd have their lists. And then suddenly one day I'd go, okay, today, everybody that's in training, your job is as soon as you get a manager on the phone, you are to keep them on the phone no matter what you have to do until they hang up on you. And of course, the people I was training would go, oh, evil John. Not really. And someone did the same thing to me when they were training me and I couldn't get it. I didn't understand it at first, but I certainly do now. This is about testing your limits. Do I actually want someone to hang up on you? Not really. If someone hangs up on you, you know what's going to happen? You get the gold star, absolutely, because you pushed the envelope to figure out where the distance was. We tend to think we have I have about this much personal distance in conversation before someone will disconnect or kick me off the call or whatever. And in reality, when you test the limits, you realize you have much further latitude than you ever thought. Once you understand the latitude you actually have, the stresses of a lot of that call and pressure to get off the phone go away. Top of this form, I sit down every Friday and I have to have an honesty moment. That's the fluorescent light. If you got a goose egg, put a 0 there. It's not going to help you. But 1, 2, 3 weeks in, that's going to encourage you to make changes. Track this for 8 weeks. You're going to see a very different outcome to your job search. The rest of the forms we'll just allude to here: job search opportunities I can track, networking strategy, resumes I send out, my interview strategy, because I hope that's continually developing, even my calling strategy, because it has to continue to develop. Wherever you are in your process, take the first step and learn how to repeat. Yes, looking at job postings are an important clue finder of who might be helping or who might be hiring or what they might be hiring someday to figure out the right organizations. But let's not get lost in that. Let's go after the right ones and let's change our future. That's the end of Supercharging Your Job Search today. I have a very, very special one tomorrow. Oh, I forgot to kill the old slide out of there. And that's tomorrow. We have at 11 a.m. Ask Self Recruiter. This is a very special Q&A. I have these about once a week. It's a live Q&A. I can handle any questions you might have. If your questions on job search, career, resume, LinkedIn, whatever it might be, are not getting answered, send your questions into ask@selfrecruiter.com. That's ask@selfrecruiter.com. Best questions are included every single time. The Ask Self Recruiter series becomes a wonderful library of Q&A over on my YouTube channel. So do check that out. Thank you guys for joining in today. See you tomorrow at 11. Take care.